Today's video will be a mixture between a documentary and a tier list because I'm interested in how certain DLCs changed the game, how they improved it, and also to see if they're worth it to get nowadays. For example, No Step Back is an absolute S tier because there's not a single focus tree. Okay, there's very few alternate paths in this DLC that are bad. This was such an important DLC because it reworked supply mechanics. Before this, wars were just waged by encircling divisions, and if it was a long drawn out war, there's nothing you can do. Like, you just grind the enemy down. But nowadays you have strategy. You can encircle divisions, you can go for supply hubs, you can cut off railways, you can encircle ports, you can build ports, you can spend half a year to build a supply hub if you want to. I mean, there's a couple of things that I don't like about it, but in general, I really like the supply mechanics. Honestly, they make the game so much more fun. NSB also added the tank designer, which I am a fan of the designers, so that's a thumbs up from me. Also a little bit of fun stuff, like they reworked the doctrines, so they no longer use research slots and instead use army XP, which is kind of neat. If you don't have that many research slots, that is good for miners. And I love mine. I've already made that joke before. And also they added a couple of minor things like the army spirits, which is cool because, you know, you can customize your army a little bit. Sure, they could be a little bit more impactful, so you could run cavalry and something like that, but it's still, customization is always great. Okay, we'll get to that when we talk about MIOs. And then the Polish focus tree. Mashallah. Every single path is, okay, apart from the democratic, but every single unaligned path is so fucking fun. Absolute god tier focus tree. The Soviet alt history branches are honestly just far too tedious for what you get out of it. I find it disappointing that we never got a democratic Soviet Union, and also the unaligned and fascist paths are just far too slow. But the other communist paths are pretty cool, and you know, like the base Soviet focus tree is just di molto. And then the Baltic paths are also, the Baltic paths, they are so fun. I mean, apart from Latvia, like, I'm sorry Latvia for getting Ostland, but it's just ass. But Lithuania is fun, and Estonia is fun, and the Soviet focus tree, brother. Honestly, this is the gold standard of what a Hearts of Iron 4 DLC needs to be. It reworked old systems, the focus trees were fire, it added cool new features, at least in my opinion, cool new features, everything. It did everything right. I can already spoil this. If you don't have any of these DLCs, get No Step Back. Honestly, it is such a good DLC in my opinion. Now, we are also going to talk about the first three DLCs, Together for Victory, Devil Cake, and Waking the Tiger, which, you know, are now part of the base game, but it's still, like, I still want to talk about them because, you know, maybe they are cool. Starting off with the Together for Victory focus trees. They might as well not exist. I would say more here, but there is nothing there. Mid-video jump scare, because I certainly didn't forget to explain any of those rankings. S tier is an absolute must buy. We need more DLCs like this one. A tier is really good, and I like to use it every single game. B tier is still really good, but some of these focus trees or additions are just a little bit dated. And then C tier, I do feel mostly neutral about, because there's either some very good things, but also some very bad things, or it's just, you know, like the Together for Victory focuses, where I'm like, okay. And then F tier are DLCs that I would not miss, and I actually even think about disabling from time to time. One thing I do have to commend Together for Victory though, it did add WOOOO for infantry, which, you know, it's not something that I pay much attention to. It's just nice flavor, especially once Patrick starts commanding the Dutch soldiers. The Austrians, come on. As a German, the Austrian voiceover is just so nice because they don't speak like a German does. I can't take them seriously, but it's so nice. Would love if we got some Swiss voice lines though. Like Swiss people exist, brother. I already know, if I ever work in Switzerland and they ask me to take some overtime hours, I won't be able to refuse, because as a German, you know, they would ask you to take some Überstunden. But a Swiss would ask you to take some Überstündlis. And like, how can you refuse that? Überstündlis, that sounds cute. I want to do that, yes. To get back to the video, Together for Victory also added the combat log, which is not something that I use in every game, but it is still very nice to know how many men you lost, how much equipment you lost, how much equipment you've scavenged. It's just useful. It should be in the game, because just put yourself into Hitler's shoes for a second. And then you ask Steiner, wie viele Männer haben wir verloren? Ja, wir haben so die 12 Millionen verloren. Und wie? Und wo? Warum fragen Sie mich sowas? Weißt du nicht, das ist ein Krieg? And now you can know this stuff. But we also got tech sharing, as well as requesting Lend-Lease. Before this point, you had to pray for your allies to send you Lend-Lease. Which, I mean, I guess these are cool things. Like, the tech sharing was in the Commonwealth focus trees, so, Oh, wait. Right, there was one thing I forgot in this DLC. Puppet mechanics! Up to this point, there was nothing you could do with your puppets. You could ask them for divisions. And that's fucking it! If you had a puppet, there was no way for you to annex them, you couldn't declare war on them, and in general, they were just a faction member that you couldn't kick. If for an achievement, they controlled land that you needed. For example, if you wanted to form a nation, there was no way to get this little piece of junk. And it's absolute dog dick that this used to be a DLC feature. I'm so glad that this is now part of the base game, because as much as I hate this, Together for Victory would be the one DLC that you would have to get, just because they gave such an important mechanic behind a paywall. Sure, like, what did Together for Victory cost? 15 bucks? Get it on sale for like free? But still, it's just paradox. Also, puppets are no longer puppets. They have different levels of autonomy, which is neat. If I'm being honest, the puppet mechanics, they do turn it up to an A or even S tier DLC just because of the puppet mechanics, but the focus trees are just so... Like, I don't want to put it into F tier because it did add important stuff, but if it was just about the focus trees, it would be an F tier. Although, I will say, the focus... Yes, it would not be an F tier because the focus trees are bad, but you can play with them. 70 days to get 20% railroad construction speed for Australia is fucking bullshit, but at least Australia has some fun things to do in this focus tree. We'll get to other ones soon, don't worry. Together for Victory also added a couple of free features, like if you're not the war leader, you could call your subjects into the war, which does make me question why people played this game at launch. Oh no, they didn't! Garrison orders could also now be customized, which is, to this day, a trap for people like me, because I'm too lazy to set up port garrisons, and then I just use the area defense, and I get navally invaded, and my troops all reshuffle, and then suddenly I am at 50% capitulation percentage. Also, I don't know if you've noticed, I am standing the entire time. I can't afford a chair right now, so please subscribe so I can finally afford a chair and sit again. Now, the Death or Dishonor focus trees, they are... fine. I'd say that every single one of those nations has a fun path, but the focus trees as a whole are... Well, they all have one fun path. Yugo has its Balkanize Myself path, Romania has the Dominate the Balkans path, Hungary has the Shoot HoI4 path, and Czechoslovakia has the Do the German focuses for them path, even if they're democratic. Okay, genuinely, Austro-Hungary is fun, and Czechoslovakia defending against Germany, democratic, is also fun. And that's the thing, like, the focus trees all have one path that I absolutely recommend you do, and the rest is just there. Regardless, the rest of the paid features are kind of forgettable because, you know, equipment conversion, which yes, is useful and depending on a patch is also absolutely broken because the conversion can be cheaper than creating the thing outright, but it's a very fringe thing. I've used it a couple of times, but it is nice for nations that are lacking in resources. Equipment licensing is a mechanic that can be abused by a ton of mechanics nowadays, like using MIOs to swap it and then turning it into your own thing, research boost and such. But I genuinely don't bother with it most of the time. It's nice that it's there, but I would probably prefer a direct way to share tech since, you know, sharing tech was, at least for the allies, kind of a big deal in World War II. And we have like 2 focuses that reference this with the Tizard mission and, but you can't just give somebody, looky here, my British chap, I have the blueprints that you wanted for your tank. No, you can just be like, yeah, about this tank thing you wanted.
I can give you half a blueprint.
Now, as for the free features, there's a couple of minor but very relevant ones. Like, we have an actual air view. Before this, you had to create air wings and then you had to deploy them and then you could drag them into an air zone, but you couldn't see them in the air zone. You had to check every single air zone, and after creating them, you always had to wait for them to deploy, and it was just much more tedious and spreadsheety. Now you have little planes that are actually flying across the air zones, and before that you just had a sheet of paper telling you, oh yeah, you have planes, trust me bro, you have planes, which is exactly how my portfolio is looking right now. I don't fucking know, it says that I have 50k, but they could be lying for all I know. Additionally, we also got impassable terrain, which, as much as I hate it for breaking front lines, is good. Like, there is certain terrain that with army gear and tanks you should not be able to cross, and it also adds a little bit more strategy. And I will make sure that whoever decided that the Amazon should have 8 different front lines will have a wet pillow when they least expect it. And you can now also uncapitulate, which I guess is neat. But apart from this one Dutch achievement where you have to capitulate and then free yourself, I don't think a single human in history has ever lost against the AI. Not even me. All in all, honestly, I do like the focus trees. So just because of that, I'm gonna put it into B tier. I just like the focus trees because they're simple. They're straightforward. You don't have to spend 20 fucking minutes trying to understand what the fuck is going on in your country. No, you're just, if you're playing Romania, you're just like, okay, I have 250,000 divisions now. Okay, please fucking die, Hungary. Oh, Waking the Tiger, oh god. I think I can delete my channel after reviewing this DLC because, I think people like this. If I look at the DLC, there's nothing of worth there, if I'm being honest. Okay, the focus trees of this DLC, they are okay. The Chinese trees are fun. The border skirmishes are frankly geringverdiener because that shit just doesn't work. And if China was made nowadays, we would have actual interactions between the warlords and a power struggle, and it would be so cool. Paradox, please rework China. And I mean, the German focus tree is also fun. The Kaiser is great, and even the democracy path is fun for once. Like, you build a huge block of allies, and then against the Soviets you just have one big battle. It's fun once in a lifetime, but if you have no step back, I wouldn't try this. Because if Russia flips to non-aligned or fascist, this entire focus tree is broken and you can't do anything anymore. Because the democratic Germany path requires the Soviet Union to be communist. If they are not, you can't do anything. You might not believe it looking at Japan's focus tree, but in this DLC, Japan also got a focus tree. It's an improvement, even though there's no reason for the ahistorical branches to exist. The thing is, they're all just far weaker than the historical branch, and they do the exact same thing. You lose Manchukuo, you declare war on Manchukuo, you declare war on China. That is all you do in those paths. I don't get why they couldn't think of anything special for Japan to do. It's just the same path 4 times. Bro, don't ever make me do the Allied path again. It's so fucking boring. You do nothing. You ask for 3 useless islands from Britain and that's it. But in general, Waking the Tiger did continue the trend of slowly improving the game and adding on top of existing mechanics, refining them, and in general bringing quality of life features. For example, national unity was a mechanic that was introduced in Hearts of Iron 3 to simulate countries capitulating. The less national unity you had, the nowadays less war support you would have, so you would cap earlier, which means France had no unity, and then Germany and the Soviet Union, they had infinite unity. And then, you know, generals and field marshals were implemented properly, so you didn't just have one guy that controlled your entire armed forces. Now you actually have to create generals, and your generals have traits, and they have attack and skill and defense and all that, and hey, ooh, units now have to acclimatize to weather. Decisions were added. You can now kick people from your factions. You can add more than 15 factories to a single line. Dragging and dropping and collapsing on your production line works now. Special forces are no longer uncapped. You can add air wings to armies. Just the 3 features. They were such a huge improvement to the base game. And that makes ranking this so fucking bad. China is fun. Not that it really matters because these DLCs are now integrated into the base game, but I'm just gonna put Waking the Tiger at top of B tier because the Germany paths are fun, the China paths are solid, and I mean, Japan got a rework. You don't have to play the historical branches, so Yeah, and like Waking the Tiger, that adds so many quality of life improvements. Waking the Tiger is probably, before this, there's no reason to play Hearts of Iron. This was the first DLC that actually gave you a reason to play this game.
Man, those guns.
The focus trees in this DLC are... Say it with me. Okay. The Dutch and the Mexican focus trees, they are really good, and I'd wager they even hold up nowadays as some of the better focus trees. I do enjoy playing as the UK and the US, but compared to focuses nowadays, they really do need a rework. But apart from this DLC is all about Navy, so I already know everybody skips this portion of the video because nobody cares. You get the ship designer, you get admiral traits, you get naval terrain, you get the ability to control your convoys, which for some reason is a paid feature. Am I forgetting about something? Oh yeah, fuel! It is kind of weird to say, but before this DLC, fuel just didn't exist. I mean, it did exist if you built a tank. The tank cost fuel to produce, but it didn't cost fuel to maintain and run, which I've never seen a tank in real life, so I might be wrong, but I don't think this simulates how tanks work in real life, because I vividly remember in history class learning that Germany invaded the Soviet Union, for one, because of ideological reasons, but also because they did need something called, oil. Regardless, I mean, it's good that it's there. I will put Man the Guns in A tier because, once again, I do like designers. It adds the ship designer. Mexico focus tree, really good. Dutch focus tree, really good. UK and US focus trees are... I enjoy them. I do like them. I do like the ahistorical paths, but they could do with a little bit of refreshing. La Resistance! The more I think about this DLC, the more I hate it. Let's start off with one of the most important countries for this DLC. I think you could already guess by the way I introduced this chapter. Spain! This DLC makes me actively not want to play Spain, which is a bummer. Like, the paths are so fun, there's so much content in there. You have 6 different Spains to play. The anarchists are fun, the phalanges are fun, the Christians are fun. Like, I do want to play all of these, but I just can't be asked. The Civil War is not hard, it's just fucking tedious. You have to encircle and then you have to wait 6 months for a division to die because it's getting attacked by 7 other divisions, and then you can't prepare an offensive right now because it's on cooldown, and and then once you're done, you have to call your country again. And then with the French focus tree, it is honestly amazing that the democratic path is the most fun one. I'm not sure amazing is the correct word for this, but I'm just gonna leave it there. And I mean, the Portugal tree is also good. One thing that's a bit of a negative is Portugal is one of those countries that can just break your game because they can form the 5th Empire and then they are no longer part of your faction even though they're your puppet, and then you no longer have access to your troops, and it's just kinda a mess. And then this DLC also added armored cars, which are useless. Admittedly, you know, they do have a place in the game, but especially since No Step Back, there's not a single reason to use those. The only reason is that the AI produces them and then you can use them as garrison divisions, but that's so micro intensive to only use a couple of those. Because like light tanks give you the same suppression value and they are half as expensive. Honestly, this is the most armored cars I've done, allowing me to talk 30 seconds about them in a YouTube video and getting the sweet ad revenue. I actually have to strip because this DLC is just... Okay. Let's talk about the elephant in the fucking room that I can't see because I don't have a spy. The epitome of Paradox design. Spy agencies. They did not get a single update since their release. Many systems don't make any sense. For example, support resistance is permanent and can stack the resistance to an unmanageable level. And then even while I'm using spy agencies, I don't even know why I bother. The system is useful. You reduce enemy entrenchment and then you get your like 5% buffs and then you can get intel and such. But more often than not, all I do is get call-up governments and call it a day. And yes, you can steal tech, which is busted. But that's it. There's very little point to using spies for anything else. And I know this system will never be changed because it's a DLC feature and Paradox does not make money off of fixing DLC features. Unless you're playing Stellaris, I guess. 80% of my complaints could probably be fixed if there was some way to get more access to spies. If you control 90% of the world, the most you can get is your 2 spies from your agency and a 3rd spy if you're lucky and have your fucking spy advisor, and then a couple from your focus tree. And that's it. Why, with 90% of the world, can I field as many spies as Luxembourg? That's ridiculous. Allow me to use IC or research to increase my cap or just anything. It's just ridiculous. And then you could also add some special operations like steal PP, steal resources, give the enemy some production or resource malices, and then operations to also counter these operations. And then I could see myself interact with the system more, but as it stands, it's just... Because of this DLC, we also got resistance management. Before this DLC, you just spread out your army as garrisons and just called it a day, and now you have to manage resistance and compliance, which is cool. I do like this. I wish there was some way that this wasn't so tedious. You know, if you ever conquered the UK, you know what I'm talking about. There's suddenly 60 countries that are all at 70% compliance, but the rest of your conquered land is at 40% resistance. The optimal thing would be to put everything with the high compliance on civilian oversight and then the rest on local police force or some shit, but you can't do that unless you spend 20 minutes and then you think about the fact that it's Africa and you would get like 10 people out of this, and I just don't get it, man. Like, nah, man. The thing is, F tier is not fair for La Resistance because Spain is fun, Portugal is fun, France is fun. I just don't want to do the Spanish Civil War. The one thing I hate about La Resistance is the fact that I know it won't get updates. It won't ever get fixed. My complaints will forever be unanswered. But wait, I forgot about the DLC. The most important one, the Axis Armor Pack, which I had to buy for like $3. Thank you, John Parker. That was very funny how you said, oh, we're gonna disable all DLCs, right guys? And then you didn't. Okay. Looking at this DLC, I think La Resistance goes up here. Bosporus Battle Royale. I know some people really like the DLC. If you do like this, then please skip ahead 1.7 minutes. My main complaint with Battle for the Bosporus is honestly just that all of these focus trees are just so long. They take so long to come online. In the middle of World War II, you finally have your country, and then you have to manage troops and economies of 6 nations that you just caught. I just find them confusing since you switch ideologies so often, and then you have to manage your factions, and then some factions you are allied to, and then you switch ideology and then they hate you. But if you ally them earlier, then they still stay your friend. Because you never know which faction you're gonna shoot and which faction you have to suck off, and it's... Ironically, I do find Central Turkey to be the most fun path, since you can do some early wars and then you are not locked until 1942 to do anything in your game. Turkey is actually fun with this. I do recommend. Do Spanish Legion, Turkey, and then do some early wars or something. I don't know. Just have fun with it. And, like, the cool thing is you can also join any of the free blocks later on, and like it's a genuinely good focus path. But by God, I don't fucking care about investing in your Turkey, please. Like, it is mean to put this into F tier, but it is the only DLC so far that I consider to turn off from time to time because it's just so broken. Admittedly, Paradox fixed most of these issues. Honestly, get the subscription for $5, play the Central Turkey path, play the Bulgaria path, and you've seen everything that this DLC has to offer. There's no point spending money on this. I don't think I'll ever revisit those countries apart from content. Just because of that, I can't rank it higher than C tier. Okay, I'm gonna bump La Resistance up to high C tier, just because, you know, the focus trees are fun. Oh, by spaghetti alone, by Mussolini, this was one of the DLCs of all time. We got a rework of the peace conference system, we got an aircraft designer, we got medals, we got embargoes, we got focus trees, and boy, those were focus trees. Let's start with my favorite one. Can you guess it? It starts with S and ends with Switzerland. Right, Ethiopia. Ethiopia is cool, I guess. I mean, genuinely, that's the extent of my opinion on the Ethiopian focus tree. I mean, they can cause uprisings in all of Africa, which is bullshit if they survive, but I honestly don't care. Do I really have to talk about Switzerland again? The focus tree is just far too convoluted. It's so easy to softlock. You need unaligned support, but not too much unaligned support. But you also need to have a certain amount of canton support. Oh, you forgot to hire an advisor. Well, you might as well restart because you get so heavy malices. And then add the fact that Switzerland pretty much only has one path. It's just so far removed from what focus trees are usually like because of the restrictions. It's just falls so flat in my opinion. Oh, and then Italy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Especially at release. This was such a broken mess. The Italian Civil War popped up on non-core territory as well. So losing a single fucking island could start a civil war in the Italian and Roman Empire. And suddenly you are a puppet, lost half of your army, half of your land. And of course you have to get it back in the peace deal if you win. And then Italy also gets access to the I don't want to be your puppet anymore focus, even if they're not being puppeted via event. And then also the hyped political party system that is honestly just 3 decisions that moves the slider around, and I don't know why that is a special balance of power feature and not just a decision in your decision tab, but I guess that is marketing for you. Regardless, Communist Italy is fun with their 8 spies. Democratic Italy is very fun, especially because they can form Rome and then can also do a world conquest. Honestly, the Democratic Rome path, it probably is my favorite Italy path out there. And then I don't really use embargoes or medals. I mean, they just cost PP, and there's so many more things to use PP on. But I mean, you get more things to do in peace conferences, and the aircraft designer is also nice. There we go. It is a very high A tier because the Italian focus tree is really good, and I will just pretend until the end of my days that Switzerland and Ethiopia do not exist. That is until Ethiopia starts releasing 50 nations out of Africa. Butter against Tyranny is also... oh boy, oh boy. This is hard to rank. It did do a lot of things right, and it laid groundworks for other DLCs. But it also just fumbled on so many steps. On the one hand, I do like the focus trees. People can meme about how broken the Finnish focus tree is with their army spirits. But realistically, like 90% of this is honestly inconsequential. It's just green numbers. This is balanced by Finland not having manpower. And that's my biggest problem with this DLC. I really like the flavor and the feel of those focuses. But if you want to do anything in single player, you will have to annex all the Nordics, or at least Scandinavia. This results in every single one of those paths feeling the same. No matter if you start as Denmark, Norway, Sweden or Finland, you always want to conquer all of the Nordics, core them, and then finally you have manpower in industry. And then you have to get a non-aggression pact with Germany, and you have to fight the Soviet Union, and... afterwards the Germans. And then if you take too long with a path, you also have to fight the allies, because Germany is gonna go in against Denmark and Norway, and then you can't get those two anymore. And it's just such a huge bummer, because AAT added these shared focus trees, and as I hinted at earlier already, I do love them. I absolutely adore this concept. Like, when they announced it, I was like...
A shared focus tree? That's stupid. Why are you making a dev diary about this? What does that do?
Now I'm like, oh my god, yes! I want one for my home. I want to put one on the shelf right there, right next to Junko. Like, if I'm being honest, it's not even that great of a concept. I just love that different players and the AI can work towards a united goal. But why would I do that if I can only field 4 armies on all adult serve? MIO reworks. I do like them. You will see a pattern with this. I do like them. I do like that they're there, and I think it's a good idea. But it is an expansion feature, so we'll never see any quality of life improvements there. And then we have to live with the fact that we never will be able to save any presets, and every single time you load up a new game, you will have to spend 5 minutes checking every single one of those stupid MIO paths. And it's just tedious. And then, like... there's also some trolling from Paradox's side, because some nations don't have MIOs. Like ahistorical Australia, they don't get any era MIOs. China's MIOs are location based and can be lost while you're at war. Like, if you could form your own MIOs, then all of this would go away. Give me the option to make MIOs and the option to save presets, and honestly, okay, it's not an... it would be high A tier. The market of AAT, the market, it does suffer from the exact same issue. Conceptually, it's nice. You can use your IC to buy guns or sell your shitty guns or even your shitty airplanes, because the AI really likes to buy shitty airplanes. But then once you get to having 3 shitty AI guns from the UK, 2 AI guns from France and 1 AI gun from Poland, I just can't be arsed anymore. It's just too tedious for me to care about this. I'm gonna say it's a B tier because the focuses, they can be truly fun and the MIOs are a step in the right direction. It's just Paradox took that one step and then they decided to take another side step into a river. I'm not even gonna fucking sugarcoat it. TOA is the worst fucking DLC they've done this far. but it added a very breakable mechanic. It did revamp the Monroe Doctrine if you have the DLC, which is no longer the US guaranteeing all of America. Instead, it's a national spirit for all of America. Declaring war on a nation will result in the US sending you a demand to white peace or them joining the war against you. This event also happens if you already peace out the nation. So let's say hypothetically you're fighting Ethiopia and they have one VP left before they capitulate. You could, in theory, declare war on Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina, and they would all join the Ethiopian faction. You take this one last VP and then suddenly you control half of South America, and then the US will be like, but please white peace with them afterwards. And the downside is that Argentina, Chile and Brazil will join the allies every single game now. Which means more enemies if you fight against them, and Chile will also often become a major. And then the focus trees. Oh, hermano, they are some of the worst ones out there. In terms of gameplay, feel and ideas, they're not even that bad. It's just these focus trees suffer from AAT syndrome. They're all the same. Every single one. Conquer South America. Call South America. Whoops! You were too slow. I guess you have to fight the allies now. Because one of the miners joined the allies. Oh, look at that. Look who decided to join the allies, huh? Yeah, I mean, I might also be traumatized by these achievements, but after 2 hours, every single campaign devolved into the same mess. I have to slowly grind my way up to America, constantly fend off naval invasions, and then I have to island hop over to the UK because Hitler is fucking incompetent. And by God, if I take too long, India becomes a major. Ah, it's so fun, this focus tree. Honestly, this would even be a fair ranking for this DLC. I actually feel ripped off for buying this. The newest DLC in the lineup has been out for a couple of months now, and the rose-tinted classes have come off. When it came out, I really liked it. The new focus trees are absolute bangers. Belgium, Austria, Hungary, and historical Germany are so top tier. Like, historical Germany might just be my favorite nation to play nowadays, and that's not because I'm German. Although it certainly helps. I just like economy of conquest and then the incel circle of Hitler where you can just get your little buffs and your focuses that do focuses for you, and oh my god, it's like a shared focus tree for your own country. And then they also added raids, which and then as with the special projects, as always, I do like the Paradox added them. I feel like they're lacking something. As it stands, it's just another additional feature on top of the game, which is where we are right now in the Paradox pipeline, where every single new DLC, like actual DLC, not country packs, because, you know, if you're being fair, this is not a DLC, this is a country pack. But every single DLC now has to add an additional feature, which usually results in new things for you to manage. Spy agencies, additional research, special projects, MIOs. All of this is stuff that we didn't have to do before these DLCs came out. And the big problem with this is just that you now have to invest industry as well as research to do things that you could do earlier before. And then a lot of these things, a lot of these special projects are things that you can effectively do in 1955. I know it's not the focus of the DLC, but I personally would have preferred if there were just some batshit insane ideas in there. Old history weapons, or at least something that you can use for every playstyle that you can get in a mid-game. Because right now the only mid-game tech is the howitzer, the super howitzer, and I guess the submarine tech. It would have just been neat if we could something like that for tanks and motorized as well as planes, potentially also the other ships. And then there's the fact that the MEVs don't use the tank designer as well as the mothership, and it's just... Again, I do like the special projects. I like that they are there, but I think I enjoyed the game more without them. I mean, I didn't have to manage a second research thing to manage. Regardless, I mean, that's just my opinion, and that opinion will shift. Believe me, like, ask me in 3 months. Comment under this video in 3 months, and my opinion will be completely different. I will say, oh my god, I love special projects. They're the best thing added ever. Ask me in 5, and I'll say that it ruined Hearts of Iron 4, and the game is now dead because of special projects. The focus trees, though, they are the gold standard. I mean, the EU trees are a tad annoying because you don't really get a choice or an option to annex the other nations in the EU. You can't really form a European ethno-state. Götterdämmerung is a high A tier. I will say, if I liked special projects more, it would be an S tier. So far, every single Hearts of Iron DLC that came out, I was very skeptical at first, where I didn't really like the new additions. But with Götterdämmerung, that was not the case. Götterdämmerung, I was like, oh my god, those focus trees. Oh my god, Germany is so fun now. now. Oh my god, special projects are so cool. But with time, I just kind of, like, I don't really like the special projects right now. But again, that can still shift with time.
Oh no, I'm in space and the only way to save me is to watch this special project tier list